Good afternoon. Welcome to EduSet Network. Friend, this week we have been discussing the different aspect of Gupta period. The Gupta period, when we talk about the time period which comes to the mind, is roughly from 3rd century to the 6th century, about 300 years. So today we are going to discuss the society in those days, and 300 years cannot be covered in one lecture. So we will just try to understand the dominant feature of those times, continuity and change. And for discussion on this very topic, we have in studio Dr. Shankar Kumar. He teaches history in Hindu College, one of the prestigious college of the country, in Delhi University, and he has written a number of books and contributed an article in different peer reviewed journals and national international journals. So I think knowledge and experience of teaching will help us to understand this topic and give a kind of insight how to understand the society of Gupta period. So on your behalf, I welcome him for the EduSet lecture. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Amrinji, for the kind words, and good afternoon, viewers. Today's lecture on society or changes in the society during the Gupta period essentially is in continuation to yesterday's discussion that we had with relation to changes in the realm of economics. And the overall change, overall historical change cannot be seen in isolation. Therefore, I would advise that quite a few things that we would be taking up for discussion today should be seen in the context of the overall changes encompassing economy and also the polity of the times. So that is one thing that we need to understand. Secondly, of course, in terms of chronological bracket, the time period that we are handling today is from around 320 AD to around 550 AD. So this is the time span of the Gupta Empire, and as we discussed yesterday, that the trajectory of change with relation to economy or society should not be seen in direct correlation with dynastic changes, which are more political in nature. Now, since the time bracket is that of Gupta period, that should not lead us to be unmindful of the trajectory of change which had been triggered in the society of ancient India ever since the Vedic times. So what we shall do to begin with is to briefly touch upon that trajectory and trace little bit of continuity and change, so that there is a semblance of correlation with the earlier period as well. That would allow us to place our discussion in proper perspective. Now, initiating our discussion, as you can see on your slide, I have outlined the scheme of today's discussion on the slide, so that we have a systematic way in which we proceed about it. The first thing is to understand the social trajectory from the Vedic times, and when we say social trajectory from the Vedic times, we have to be mindful of some of the key changes, particularly with reference to the second point that you can see on your slide. Two social formations which were very critical so far as understanding ancient Indian society is concerned: class and state. So one has to understand as to how class society came into being and how state society came into being in ancient India. Of course, this is not with reference to the Gupta period, because class had already precipitated by the end of the later Vedic period, around say 6th century BC, which is a very important transformative century for ancient India. This is the time of Buddha, this is the time of Jain, this is the time of Upanishad, this is the time of urban centers coming up after Harappan society in ancient India. This is the time when trade and commerce, coins and exchange had come to characterize the period. This is the time of the coming up of what we understand as territorial empires. This is also the time of the triumph of monarchical form of government over other forms of government which also coexisted during the period, for instance, republican forms or confederacies of states and so forth. Therefore, the 6th century BC change is a very big transformative change in ancient India, and this is the time when class society had emerged. And what is the pertinence of emergence of class society to our discussion of society during the Gupta period is best understood in the context of the segregation of society into different Varn orders. And once we understand the real dynamics and the operative part of Varn system, that would allow us to have a deeper insight into the way of things so far as social change during the Gupta period is concerned. So what was happening around this time, around 6th century BC, is that the fourfold Varn division of society, as all of us know, Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudra. Now, they are referred to in the later portion of Rig Veda, but they had not acquired the kind of characteristics, the kind of qualities with which we tend to associate Varn system today. And it would be important to understand that different attributes of the Varn society, the Varn system, got added to this social formation at different points of time in history, and that is why this this preface is very much required here. Now, what was happening here is that during the early Vedic and even some portion of later Vedic period, these categories, these social categories seems to be merely social groups. There is no clear-cut, inviolable kind of hierarchized way in which they were ordered, which could not be violated. So, over a period of time, we find that these categories became hereditary, and once it became hereditary, of course, your Varn status is determined by birth. So, these are some of the things that we need to look at. Now, why we are equating here Varn society with class is because by the time we come to 6th century BC, we find that there is some kind of a symbiotic relationship developing between the first two orders of society, and that is Brahmins and the Kshatriyas. Now, Brahmins and the Kshatriyas, it's not as if you look at the contemporary sources that there is no tension between the two. There is a fair degree of tension between the two in terms of their own Varn interest, economic interest. Nevertheless, in the face of the presence of the Vaishyas and the Shudras, there seems to be some kind of a distanciation that is happening between the two, that is Brahmins and Kshatriyas on the one side and Vaishyas and the Shudras on the other side. The real dynamics, economic dynamics which is at work is that of appropriation of surplus, economic surplus, and also the social surplus. So, in the form of taxes, in the form of revenue, the ruling order, the ruling class constituted by the Brahmins and Kshatriyas are in some way or the other able to appropriate a greater portion of the produce generated by essentially the Vaishyas, and of course in form of manual labor from Shudras also. So, this is how some kind of an asymmetric asymmetric distribution of surplus is happening beneath the social formation referred to as a Varna system, or this is how the class aspect of the society is at work beneath the Varna system. So that is one. Alongside this, what we also find is emergence of the state society, because up till the later Vedic times, the state of course did exist, but it was not powerful in the sense that its resources were not very secure. Resultantly, the king was not all that powerful. The king was still, you can say, dependent on voluntary gifts and payments by the subject. But over a period of, by the time we come to the end of the later Vedic period and around 6th century BC, we find that territorial states have come to be premised on a very sound footing. In the sense that agriculture had become the mainstay of society, mainstay of economy. Iron plowshare had extensively been used by around this time, 6th century BC, resulting into enhancement of surplus, and it were the Vaishyas who were the cultivating class, who were the trading class, and it is they who were generating resources, economic resources, which were appropriated by the ruling classes through taxes and revenue. So the state society had come to acquire enough surplus to maintain the apparatus, the other apparatus of the state in the form of standing army, police, council of ministers, spies, and so forth. So that is how the state society had come into being, or state had come into being as an institution. Now these two social formations, class and state, are critical to our understanding of the dynamics of social change in ancient India, and that is why we referred to it. Of course, as we proceed further towards the Gupta period, there were quite a few other changes characterizing the social landscape of ancient India, but that is what we shall be talking about. Now, third point, as you can see on your slide, is institutionalization of Varna mechanism, and in this, we shall be talking about the attitudinal change that developed around this time, which was the contempt for the manual work and the concept of Dvij, which of course is an earlier concept, but that is what we shall be talking about in order to understand as to what actually is at work in the social landscape of the Gupta period. Now, these are continuous changes. So, to confine this merely as features of Gupta period would be erroneous, because such attitudinal changes had been happening over a period of time, and it continued, rather got more ossified or intensified during the Gupta period, and that is why we are talking about it. Now, what do we mean by institutionalization of Varna mechanism is that the attributes like endogamy, the attributes like division of labor, and that being the basis of vertical hierarchization of society, then the norms governing interdining and so forth, they, alongside the notion of purity, impurity, leading to the untouchability norms or notions. So these are some of the traits which got added to Varna system or Jati system, and they got added at different points of time, and we shall try to understand as to what could have been the circumstances leading to such changes during this period. and we shall come to it later when we talk of the broad economic changes leading to ruralization and also the mobility being restricted of several sections of people, leading to such changes. This contempt for the manual work is something which is again very important, and it is something which plagues Indian society even today. The mere fact that working on land is something which was the chief form of economic enterprise through agriculture, because agriculture was the mainstay of the economy. It's a little bit strange to notice that the first two orders, Brahmins and Kshatriyas, are not quite taking to this enterprise. So they are not direct producers, so to say, at this stage. And this was not a sudden development. To begin with, of course, the Kshatriya kings had to engage with the cultivators, who essentially were the Vaishyas. And that's why even in the story of Janak or Duryodhan, we do find that they do take to agriculture. The story of Sita being discovered from beneath the land while Raja Janak was plowing the field. So despite being a king, he is the one who is plowing the field. So these are, you can say, symbolic references to the transformative times. And over a period of time, what we find is that there is some kind of a gap that became very prominent, that the first two orders would not engage in direct productive enterprise or agriculture, so to say. Now, with this becoming a normal feature of caste system, that Brahmins and Kshatriyas would not undertake cultivation, therefore manual labor was restricted to the social groups constituting the Vaishya and also the Shudras. And what we would find during the Gupta period, and particularly towards the end of the Gupta period, is the opposite of it, and that leads to some kind of a bridging of the gap, the notional gap between the first two orders, not only the first two orders but also the Vaishyas and the Shudras. Because towards the end of the Gupta period, we would find that even Shudras, who are basically in traditional terms are supposed to be doing manual work, are also engaged in cultivation. So the notional gap between the Vaishyas and the Shudras becomes less, and that could have given a sense of upliftment in terms of social and economic prestige to the Shudras. And this thesis has been worked out by Professor R.S. Sharma, who does talk of this particular fact, that during the Gupta period, or towards the later part of the Gupta period and post-Gupta period, there is this kind of a thing happening. And we would of course talk about the circumstances leading to this kind of a change. So having understood the preface to these social changes, that would allow us to study the social changes during Gupta period in a contrasting way, and that is why we are talking about it. So now Dvij is the concept which again kind of reinforces. This is again a notional thing, a ceremonial kind of a thing, but what it actually does in operative terms is that Dvij refers to the twice born, And twice born notionally again refers to the first two varnas, that is the Brahmins and the Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas are also included as part of the Dvij in the sense that they could wear sacred thread, and they had access to Vedic education and so forth. And over a period of time, we would find that these provisions of having access to, now since we are talking of the Vedic times, by the time we reach Gupta period, we find that access to Puranic hymns, chants, and other religious renderings is encompassing not only the first two orders, that is Brahmins and Kshatriyas, but also to Vaishyas and Shudras. So there is something at play even at the ritual level, which is indicating something very transforming, something very changing that must have been happening at the social landscape of this period. So this is yet another way in which we can decode such notions and such attitudes towards work and understand the change. Next point, as you can see on your slide, which is part of our discussion, is the social crisis captured in Puranic literature as Kali age. Now, Kali age is something which is referred to repeatedly in the Puranas, which of course belong to the Gupta period, 3rd century to 6th century. I am talking of the contemporary Puranas of this period. Now, what do what does this Kali age crisis actually mean? Some historians tend to present this reference of Kali age merely as some kind of a metaphor, literary metaphor. It captures the sense of arajakta, normlessness, and quite a few things are referred to as if the social order had been ruptured or had been under some kind of a stress. But there is another set of historians who go beyond the sense of metaphor or literary metaphor through the references of Kali age. They see some kind of a deep social economic crisis inflicting the social order of this period, which is getting reflected in the literature of Puranas through the references like Kali age. It's symptomatic of some kind of a crisis. What is this crisis? This crisis, as we have already discussed, in the earlier period, it were the Vaishyas who were the primary taxpayers and the Shudras who were the pool of manual works for the first two orders, that is Brahmins and Kshatriyas. Now, in the backdrop of this social order, around this time, around the Gupta period, around 3rd century AD, 2nd century AD, we start getting this reference of Kali age. Now, historians read some kind of a crisis in this, in the sense that probably the Vaishyas are now not very easily giving the taxes as revenue to the state, or in other ways, state is finding it rather tough to extract revenue for itself by collecting taxes from the Vaishyas. Since this is becoming a very difficult proposition for the state, therefore, the state resorts to some other economic measures to continue the apparatus of their state. So, the royal functionaries or the officials or even the religious beneficiaries which were supported by the state are now given a piece of land as donation, as grant, and they are set free as autonomous entities to extract tax from the population which lives in that piece of land, in case that is an inhabited piece of land which has been donated. So, they would fend for themselves. So, they would collect taxes from these people and would have, the state has no responsibility for doing so, and at the same time these people are given something in lieu of the salaries that they otherwise would have received from the state. So, this is the dynamics which is at work behind what apparently looks like a religious donation, because if you read the content of the land grants, which had become a characteristic feature of the Gupta period, you will find that most of these land grants are made with the intent to earn some bit of religious merit, not only for the king but also for his predecessors or his ancestors. So, that is how it looks, but once you read the details, it does tell us that from the donated piece of land, there were extra provisions where the royal forces were forbidden from entering into it, where the donees were given the right to not only collect taxes, but over a period of time even enjoy the wealth which lay in the beneath the soil. So, the mining rights were also ceded gradually. Similarly, some of the administrative measures were also gradually ceded to the donees. To begin with, the punitive measures were retained by the monarch who is making the land grant, but over a period of time even punitive measures are ceded to these donees, resulting into emergence of these donees as some kind of a pattern from different parts of India as feudatories, as feudal lords, and that is how feudalism set in, and that is one explanation that historians who support feudal thesis give so far as arrival of feudalism in ancient India is concerned. Another factor which informs us about the arrival of feudalism is through the shrinkage of long distance trade, which we had discussed yesterday in our discussion on economy of the Gupta period, resulting into shortage of high value coins, gold and silver coins, resulting into de-urbanization, and that leading to loss of economic pursuits for artisans and craftsmen who subsisted and who made money by gaining market in the urban areas, and since that opportunity was lost, therefore they had to come back to the villages, to the rural areas, and hence the pressure on the existing piece of land increased, and this led to quite a few other changes in the social realm that we shall be trying to capture. Similarly, another issue that is important for us to understand is the idea of Varna Shankar. Now, Varna Shankar is something which is referred to in Manusmriti and it actually means emergence of the mixed castes. And Manu gives us a kind of theory how the Varna Shankar Jatis are emerging. And he says that this results from the intermarriages, which of course were prohibited, between different castes. So that is how Varna Shankar Jatis are emerging. This is a theoretical explanation of increased number of castes, which is yet another a very important social feature of the Gupta period. We shall see as to what is actually at play. And this would be revealed to us only when we also look at the economy and society together, and that would allow us to understand the actual state of things beyond the theoretical definition or theoretical explanation given by Manu. Now, coming to the next aspect of our survey, and that is land grants, urban decay, decline in trade, craft and commerce. This is something that we just talked about, and we had elaborated upon it in our yesterday's discussion. What all these changes are actually leading to is localization of economy, self-sufficiency of economy. It also is, you can say, prohibiting movement of people across places. So, as a result of the shrinkage in trade and commercial activity, partly on account of the disintegration of the Roman Empire, and also on the account of shrinkage of high-value transactions, decreased number of gold and silver coins, and also land grants resulting from Kali age crisis, or the inability of the state to generate revenue, and hence giving land to the officials and religious beneficiaries who would resort to their own ways in local conditions, and that's how this tendency of localization is developing. And overall, with the shrinkage of market and urban centers, the spatial mobility of people has shrunk, and this is something which gets reflected in the literature, in the contemporary literature also. The Dharma Shastras belonging to this, the Smritis belonging to this period, they do talk about it. For instance, there are what earlier did not attract any taboo or any punitive measures, now in the Gupta and post-Gupta period are being frowned upon. For instance, anyone who moves beyond 7 seas or who travels abroad across seas is something which is looked down upon. Now, these social attitudes or these cultural attributes are born of a situation where localization is at play, where self-sufficiency has become the order of the day, where metropolitanism, which was a characteristic feature of the Mauryan and post-Mauryan period, is on wane or is on decline. So, all these ritual and social features or attitudes are being shaped in a particular context, which is defined by localization of economy. And we have already seen as to what all is leading to this localization and ruralization. Now, in social terms, and since we are talking of the Gupta period, what it results into is something which is exhibited by the contemporary texts. For instance, Manusmriti talks of 61 jatis, whereas in Brahma Vaivarta Puran, which is again a contemporaneous text so far as Gupta period is concerned, the number of castes recorded is more than 100. Now, what is leading to this? To say that it is on account of intermarriage between varnas and hence new jatis are proliferating is just a theoretical post facto explanation for this. Actually, what is at work is something that we can see now, having discussed the ruralization and self-sufficiency aspect of economic and social change. With the erstwhile urban social groups of craftsmen, of merchants, of artisans who were earning their livelihood from urban centers by generating surplus through their transactions or through selling their products to the urban market and so forth. With the decline of these urban centers and with the decreased number of coins that facilitated such exchange, and these social groups coming over to the rural areas in order to sustain themselves, what is happening is that as a result of this attitudinal change, where localization is the order of the day, where self-sufficiency is almost becoming a norm, where you are producing only what you locally consume, therefore, as a result of this immobility, all these social groups are developing some attributes which are making them endogamous. For instance, in order to retain their lost identity as a particular distinct social group, a particular artisanal group or a particular group of craftsmen, they are tending to marry within their own group, within their own social group. Now, this is leading to, with this you can say economic category resorting to endogamy, they in the subsequent period gradually emerge as a distinct jati. Because we have already seen that the moment the identity gets fixed, the identity of one jati gets fixed at the time of birth, at the root of that is endogamous marriage. And this is the period where several such social groups, economic groups, are getting converted into jatis, distinct jatis. And the Brahmanical order of the day is trying to give some status in the vertical arrangement, which is very much a character of the Varna order. And hence this explanation of Varna Shankar, that is, that if a Brahmin boy marries with a Kshatriya girl, then this will happen, and the progeny would be reduced to an untouchable or a Shudra and so forth. And this is where the notion of Anulom and Pratilom marriage also develops. Now, there is fair bit of gender involved here, gender history involved here. And another important aspect of the social history is also to capture the status of women around this time. So this mechanism, this theoretical device by which the newly proliferating jatis or the social groups are given a particular social status through the mechanism of Varna Shankar rules through anulom and pratilom marriage is something that needs to be looked at from the gender perspective. Now, what is very important here to understand is that if a boy of higher caste marries a girl of lower caste, then that would be anulom marriage. Anulom is, of course, not desired. It is a violation of Varna order. Nevertheless, it is somewhat permissible in the sense that it would not attract the kind of punishment that a pratilom marriage would. So, if a boy of higher order is marrying a girl of lower order, that is anulom marriage. Whereas, if a girl of higher order marries a boy of lower order, this is pratilom marriage. Then the progeny is destined to be an untouchable, theoretically. Now, this gives us an idea about the element of patriarchal values that had crept into society by the time we talk of Gupta and post-Gupta period. So, these patriarchal tendencies are becoming more prominent, which are demonstrated through such norms and such rules at the theoretical level. Because in the period preceding this is not to say that patriarchy was not there. Patriarchy was there, but it is becoming more and more ossified, and it is becoming more and more deep entrenched so far as ancient Indian social landscape is concerned. So, this is another element that we need to be looking at. Now, so proliferation of these jatis actually is a result of the shrinkage of towns and ruralization of economy, and mobility becoming very restricted, and hence these groups, these economic groups or occupational groups starting to marry within their own groups, and hence emerging as endogamous groups, and hence jatis. So, this is something that we need to understand. Very prominent among such jatis is the emergence of the Kshatriyas, the Kayasthas. Now, Kayasthas are traditionally scribes, the people who maintained the land records of the period, and of course, it was an occupational group, and in the post-Gupta period or towards the end of the Gupta period, we find that Kayasthas are emerging, are being referred to as a distinct jati. Now, of course, what was at play is something that we have already discussed. So, we have several references to these new jatis which are emerging around this time, and we have already discussed the actual historical circumstances in which they emerged and the theoretical justification given by the Brahmanical sources in relation to this. Also important is to understand the next point that you can see on your slide, third point on this particular slide: hereditary occupation, endogamy, interdining, untouchability, taboo against long distance journey, and condition of women. So, if we scan the social landscape of Gupta period, these are some of the features at a very general level which can be discerned. Now, we have already understood the real historical forces at play beneath such attitudinal changes, for instance, taboo against long distance trade, a long distance journey, and also the notion of untouchability, because untouchability here would refer to a kind of an attitude where one tended to reinforce the idea of purity superiority or superiority in terms of purity by the upper varnas, by the Brahmins and Kshatriyas, and trying to theoretically or notionally denigrate the servile class or the people who were engaged in manual works, and also another way to look at it is that quite a few occupations, and this is important for us to understand. Generally, we tend to look at these attributes in a very static way. The real benefit of having a historical understanding of such changes is to have a historical insight into these processes. For instance, quite a few occupations which were not looked down upon, which were reasonably honorable occupations during the Vedic period. For example, Rathakar. Rathakar is the social group which is engaged in making chariots, chariot makers. They were privileged groups in the Vedic period, because chariot was something which was a prized possession in the Vedic circumstances, in the Vedic context. But by the time we reach later Gupta and post-Gupta period, Rathakar becomes a very lowly kind of a social group. So the point that we are making here is that with a particular occupation falling into some kind of a disuse in the context of the economic and social changes, gets denigrated as a lowly job, and that's how we need to understand these social changes or attitudinal changes, including untouchability and so forth. So that is one. Similarly, we have also seen the condition of women getting deteriorated on account of these changes, with the deep entrenchment of agriculture as the mainstay of economy. What happened is that agriculture being a labor intensive enterprise, women folk were confined to some domestic operations required for agriculture, and therefore their role in the overall economy is also somewhat diminishing. For instance, in the Vedic period, early Vedic period, which was primarily pastoral, the women folk were extremely important in the household, looking after the cattle, milking them and so forth. So their role was very critical to the overall economy, and with agriculture becoming the order of the day or the mainstay of the economy, there is some kind of denigration that can be seen in the position of women, although in the contemporary texts they are shown in a very contradictory kind of picturization. At times they are elevated to ritually to a very high status, but the actual condition is something which doesn't quite match their valorization or their eulogization in the contemporary texts. So this is something that we can say with reference to the position of women during the period. Now, also towards the end of our discussion, as you can see on your slide, this is contextualizing the ideology of bhakti in the emerging feudal scenario. All of us know that the end of Gupta period is also the period around which the concept of bhakti is emerging. Of course, to begin with, it emerged in the peninsular India and gradually pervaded other parts of India as well. What is at the root of this bhakti ideology is the sense of personal dependence on God and doing away with the intermediaries in worship mode and establishing some kind of a direct connection with the Lord. And this is a kind of, you can say, escape, psychological and spiritual escape from the realities of the time. And this offered a great sense of solace to the downtrodden people, and it helped, this ideology helped them helped the ruling class to avoid a situation where the lower orders come to a point of revolting against the oppressions that they were subjected to. And therefore, this bhakti ideology is understood by the proponents of feudalism in ancient Indian history as a kind of ideological tool by the used by the or deployed by the ruling class to offset any such threat of direct revolt by the lower orders. Also important to note here is some kind of very tangible difference between European feudalism and Indian feudalism. This is outlined by Harbans Mukhia and R.S. Sharma debate also on Indian feudalism, is that quite unlike European classic model of feudalism, in India, the peasantry or the tenants always had the option to move out of a particular piece of land over which the level of oppression had become very intense. And this could be a possibility only in the presence of such land which were still uncultivated land. In Europe, this was not a possibility. This was because almost the entire stretch of land in Western France, from where the classic model of feudalism is picked, had already been inhabited during the Middle Ages, and hence there was no escape for the tenants, and hence there was some kind of a structured dependence of the tenants on the landlords, and hence serfdom as an institution emerged in Western France. Now this could not emerge, the situation could not become that intense, the level of oppression did not become that intense in India on account of the availability of fallow land, which was always available, and the peasants, of course, with a great degree of difficulty, could after a particular point move out of an oppressed area and fend for himself or herself in the new area. But also alongside this historical reality is the issue of bhakti ideology which is at work, and this ideology is some kind of you can say releasing the sense of unease which could be subjectively felt by the peasantry, whose position, of course, had no more remained autonomous as it did in the earlier period, when Vaishyas were the chief taxpayers, and they were making money and prospering till the Mauryan and post-Mauryan period. But by the time we reach later Gupta period, there is some kind of a sense of unease here, and with the band of intermediaries coming in between the actual tillers and the ruler, as a result of the practice of land grants and their practice of staying away from direct production and so forth. So these specific Indian features did not quite allow the situation to move exactly the way it happened in Western France. So there is fair degree of individuality to the way in which feudalism set in and progressed in ancient India and in the early medieval part of India. So these are some of the aspects which can be apprehended, which can be captured as important changes in the social plane of the Gupta period that we have just spoken about. So in case there are any questions, I would love to take them.
So this was the continuity and change of the society during the Gupta
right.
period.
That's
So what you would like to suggest for further reading of students if they want to understand the society of that time?
Yes, see, my suggestion to any student who wants to understand the social aspect of the Gupta period would be first to understand these changes in direct correlation with economic and political changes. And the backdrop, whether you adhere to feudal model or you don't buy this argument of feudalism, the fact of the matter is that you can't do away with economic and political changes which are simultaneously happening. Also important is to have little bit of an idea about the backdrop of these changes, because towards the beginning of our lecture we did say that social changes do not happen in isolation, and hence one has to understand the actual trajectory of social changes, and they don't always change with respect to dynastic changes. So the way in which society has been gradually changing ever since the Vedic period is something which needs to be understood, and that is how one can appreciate the element of continuity and change with respect to the social scenario of the Gupta period.
Okay. So you suggest that students should not take the society or economy or political happening in isolation, rather they should see in the comparison with respect to others, and what was the driving force. They first need to identify those driving force and then come to a conclusion and then form their own opinions.
That's right.
So if friends, if we follow this approach, certainly we'll have different kind of opinion, you can outlook about those. So with this word we conclude the lecture, and I thank all of you for watching the lecture. On your behalf, I thank Dr. Shankar Kumar for giving such an insightful lecture on this very topic. Thank you very much.